Breaking. Britain just lost its most important ally in the Middle East. Not through war, not through sanctions, through a single phone call that changed everything. Benjamin Netanyahu didn't issue a warning. He didn't send a diplomat. He banned Britain's entire government from entering Israel. Every official, every minister, every representative. No exceptions. And if you think this is just political theater between two countries, stay with me. Because what happens next affects your safety, your money, and your country's place in the world. This isn't diplomatic drama. This is a security crisis that's unfolding right now. 4 days ago, Karma made 2 decisions that detonated a 75-year alliance. First, he backed International Criminal Court arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. Then he announced a total arms embargo on Israel, not just offensive weapons. Everything, including the defensive systems Israel uses to stop rockets from hitting civilian areas. What makes this worse is what Starmer didn't do. He didn't consult his own team. Dame Barbara Woodward, Britain's ambassador to the United Nations, didn't learn about these decisions from her government. She learned from an Israeli diplomatic protest. Her own country's policy was announced to her by the nation, filing a complaint against it. She wrote her resignation letter that same night. If you want to follow this story as it develops hour by hour, hit subscribe now, because this is moving faster than any diplomatic crisis in modern history. And what comes next will shock you. The Foreign Office was blindsided. British intelligence agencies had no warning. Even David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary himself, had no idea what was coming, and he was about to find out in the most humiliating way possible. That's when Netanyahu struck back. Lammy was mid-flight to Tel Aviv. The scheduled diplomatic meetings when Israeli air traffic control pulled his landing clearance, just revoked it. The plane was over the Mediterranean when the order came through. The aircraft turned around. Flight tracking apps captured the entire route in real time. A foreign minister of a G7 nation rejected like a commercial airline overbooked. Passenger diplomats across the world watched it happen live. They're calling it unprecedented, humiliating. A message sent loud enough for every capital city to hear. At 9:00 p.m. Jerusalem time, Netanyahu appeared before cameras. His entire security cabinet stood behind him. The message was 3 sentences long, and it burned every bridge between these two nations. A nation that abandons its allies in their hour of need should not expect friendship in return. Within 6 hours, Israel suspended all major intelligence sharing frameworks with Britain. Agreements worth billions of pounds. Programs built over decades gone overnight. And here's what that actually means for people living in Britain. Over the past 3 years, Israeli intelligence stopped 17 planned terror attacks on British soil. 17 that protection just vanished. Israeli cyber security teams actively monitor Britain's energy grids, water systems, and financial networks against foreign hacking and sabotage. That monitoring is being withdrawn right now. Mossad sources are now classifying British officials as security risks. Senior Israeli figures say the breach is permanent, irreversible. Those aren't negotiating words. That's policy. Let me give you a real example. Michael Green's daughter is alive today because Israeli intelligence caught a kidnapping plot against her in 2021. They shared that information with British authorities in time to stop it. That collaboration, that system that saved his daughter's life no longer exists for British families. Former MI6 chief Sir Alex Younger called this the worst foreign policy decision since the Suez Crisis in 1956. Lord Robertson, former NATO Secretary General, said Britain just lost its most valuable intelligence partner in the most dangerous region on Earth. These aren't politicians with an agenda. These are the people who spent their careers building the security architecture Starmer just demolished with 2 announcements. And the damage is spreading beyond Britain and Israel. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, both partners in the Abraham Accords peace agreements, have quietly expressed sympathy with Israel's position. In closed Gulf Cooperation Council sessions, ministers are reportedly asking whether Britain's security guarantees still mean anything. If Britain abandons Israel under pressure, would it abandon them? Jordan is asking the same question. Arab diplomats say decades of relationship building across the Middle East have been shredded in a single news cycle. Think about that. Britain is now distrusted by Arab states in Israel. Simultaneously, a two-front diplomatic disaster that leaves Britain isolated in one of the world's most critical regions. Financial markets reacted within hours. The pound dropped against the shekel. 30 billion pounds in annual bilateral trade is now under serious review. British technology firms are being removed from Israeli innovation projects overnight. The hashtag Britain betrays allies is surging across social media. On British streets, Jewish communities are asking a simple, chilling question. Without Israeli intelligence protecting us, who keeps us safe? Now, inside number 10, Downing Street, panic is replacing policy. Defense Secretary John Healey called the decision strategically suicidal during an emergency Cobra meeting. Home Secretary Yet Cooper was reportedly overheard, warning colleagues, "We've made Britain a target without protection." WhatsApp groups inside the National Security Council now have names like foreign policy disaster. Government insiders aren't debating whether this was a mistake anymore. They're debating how catastrophic it will become. And then came the leak. Came the leak. That changed everything. MI5 threat assessments now circulating in Whitehall warned that Iranian-backed proxy groups are already probing for gaps created by the intelligence freeze. These reports point to planned operations timed specifically to exploit Britain's new blind spots. Read that again. British lives are at risk because of a decision sold to the public as moral clarity and international leadership. Rishi Sunak sees the political opening. He's positioning himself as the restoration candidate. His message is simple. Britain must stand with its democratic allies or it will stand alone. And the polling reflects a massive shift. Conservatives surging into the 50s. Labour collapsing into the teens. National security has become Labour's bleeding wound. And it's getting worse. Washington is watching this meltdown with barely concealed fury. The CIA depends on the Britain-Israel intelligence triangle to track terrorist threats across the Mediterranean, North Africa, and into Europe. That network just fractured. One senior American intelligence official said it bluntly to reporters, "If we're forced to choose between London and Jerusalem, we already have." Mike Pompeo, former CIA director and Secretary of State, went even further in a television interview. Britain is choosing irrelevance over influence. History will not be kind for a nation that has prided itself on global leadership since World War II. Those words cut deep. Inside NATO headquarters, France is openly questioning British reliability. Poland, which depends heavily on British security guarantees as a frontline state against Russian aggression, is asking Privately, whether Britain would abandon them too under political pressure. These aren't abstract diplomatic concerns. These are questions being asked right now in every allied capital that once trusted the United Kingdom without hesitation. That trust is evaporating. The economic damage is immediate and severe. Israeli venture capital funds have frozen British investments. Overnight, £0.4 billion in technology. Partnerships are being redirected to American and European firms. The city of London, long a magnet for Israeli tech companies seeking stock market listings, is hemorrhaging credibility. Cancer, research collaborations, pharmaceutical development projects, joint defense contracts. Analysts are projecting losses exceeding £100 billion across biotechnology, cybersecurity, and defense sectors over the next 5 years. Britain's economic arteries are being cut, and it's self-inflicted. Inside as Israel, the consequences are personal and total. British students have been expelled from Israeli university exchange programs. Joint research laboratories shut down. British journalists are being denied entry to government press briefings. The British Embassy in Tel Aviv, once a central hub of Middle East diplomacy, is now effectively frozen out of all meaningful contact. A senior Israeli diplomat explained it plainly to international media. This isn't retaliation, it's demonstration. We're showing the world exactly what happens when trust breaks. At this level, without Israeli intelligence, Britain loses its ability to track Iranian nuclear weapons development. Hezbollah troop movements in Syria disappear from British radar. Hamas financing networks operating inside Europe go unmonitored. ISIS cells, once traced by Israeli cyber surveillance teams, slip back into the shadows. And here's the critical point. That gap cannot be filled. Not by America, not by European partners. The intelligence Israel provided was unique, irreplaceable, built on decades of human networks and technical capabilities no one else possesses in that region. Britain has voluntarily blinded itself. In one of the most dangerous theaters on Earth, defense contractors are recalculating everything. Lockheed Martin is reviewing Britain's role in F-35 fighter jet production programs. Rafael Advanced Defense Systems has CAM-led procurement contracts worth billions. Israeli cybersecurity firms are pulling their protection services from British critical infrastructure and financial systems. The message being sent is brutal and unmistakable. Britain cannot be trusted with security cooperation at any level. This lands hardest where people feel it most directly. Israel's Iron Dome missile defense technology protects British military bases in Cyprus. Israeli naval intelligence protects British commercial shipping passing through the Strait of Hormuz. MSAD counterterrorism operations across Europe have quietly saved British lives for decades. Strip those protection layers away and Britain stands exposed in ways the public doesn't even understand yet. At home, the British Jewish community feels the chill first and most personally. Synagogues that relied on Israeli security consultation are suddenly operating without that guidance. Jewish schools that worked with Israeli protection specialists are scrambling to fill the gap. Community leaders describe a wave of anxiety not seen in decades. Immigration inquiries from British Jews to Israel and the United States are spiking dramatically. The chief rabbi has called an emergency meeting of community leaders. The message spreading through British Jewish communities is devastating and simple. The government has abandoned us. And as that fear spreads through one community, Europe watches nervously. If Britain folded under political pressure with Israel, would it fold with them when tested? Baltic states watching Russian aggression wonder the same thing. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has reportedly expressed private concern about Britain's commitment to collective allied defense. Britain risks standing alone not through isolationism or strategic choice, but through sheer incompetence at the highest levels of government. So the question becomes unavoidable. Can Keir Starmer repair this? Can he undo an expulsion that's unprecedented in modern diplomatic history? Can he rebuild trust with a government that's made its position crystal clear? Or has he locked Britain into years of strategic weakness, cut off from vital intelligence, diminished influence, and broken trust? The British government insists quiet diplomatic channels remain open. Israeli officials insist they do not. Between those two contradictory claims lies the truth. A. Britain suddenly smaller, weaker, and more isolated than at any point in living memory. And here's the most frightening part of this entire crisis. It's still unfolding right now. Tomorrow's intelligence briefings may reveal the full scale of what Britain can no longer see. The threats that have become invisible because the government chose to silence its most capable partners. In this new reality, ignorance isn't just dangerous or costly. It's deadly. This story is changing hour by hour. If you want updates as this crisis deepens, turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. And drop a comment below. Do you think Starmer can repair this damage, or is Britain's credibility shattered beyond repair? Let me know what you think.